Burgum says the flags are being lowered, quote, as a mark of our deepest respect for his courageous service and ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. A local donut maker is organizing a fundraiser for the officers and their families impacted by Friday's fatal shooting. Sandy's Donuts and Heroes Compass is kicking off Operation Blue Light by selling a limited edition Blue Line donut. The donut will be sold at all 3 Sandy's Donut locations in Fargo and West Fargo between July 25th and the 26th. We're told the proceeds will be used to support officers and families impacted by the shooting. Also, customers who give a free will donation will also receive a free blue porch light. They are limited to 1 per family. Funeral arrangements are set for Fargo police officer Jake Willeen, who was killed in the line of duty Friday, July 14th. The funeral service will take place at Pequot Lakes High School at 10:30 this coming Saturday morning. Following the funeral, a private service will be held graveside in Nisswa. Chief Dave Zabolski also tells us he expects a public service will be scheduled to take place in Fargo sometime next week. Chief Zabolski says he's working with Officer Willeen's parents to plan the funeral. They're also talking about Jake's commitment to service.
You know, they recognize, just like when you watch Jake's video, that this is something that he wanted to do. He wanted to have meaning and purpose in his life. And one of the conversations with the dad, too, is, if I said, Jake, you're going to get shot tomorrow, he would have went to work anyway. And it just speaks about, again, the character of Jake Willeen and his courage as well. And
Chief Zabolski made the comment while speaking with the Flag's Scott Hennon. Tom Tucker, WDAY, and WDAYRadioNow.com.
You're invited to worship with us at Olivet Lutheran Church in Fargo. We offer a 9 a.m. Sunday traditional service with communion where all are welcome to participate. If you can't worship with us in person, you can always watch live or later on our YouTube channel. Following worship, we have time for fellowship with coffee and donuts and light service projects like packing up food for our food pantry. For more information, go to olivet.org. Encounter Jesus, experience grace at Olivet Lutheran Church on the corner of 13th Avenue and South University Drive, Fargo.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. The U.S. still working to ascertain the whereabouts and well-being of Travis King, the U.S. soldier who crossed into North Korea Tuesday. King was due to return to Fort Bliss, Texas, to face possible discipline after serving time in a South Korean prison after an altercation with locals.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the U.S. had reached out to South Korea and Sweden to learn more, but said it may take, quote, a little bit of time to gather information.
I want to be very clear that the administration has and will continue to actively work to ensure his safety and the return of Private King to us and to his family, obviously.
Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
2 IRS whistleblowers testifying before a Republican-led House committee today about the Justice Department's investigation and plea deal with Hunter Biden.
Gary Shapley is a 14-year veteran of the IRS. He's also known as Whistleblower X. He's on Capitol Hill to testify that the Justice Department handled Hunter Biden's tax investigation differently.
We interrupt programming to bring you the live press conference coverage from Fargo City Hall on WDAY.
With the chief agent with the BCI, Director Gabrowska has been here very actively engaged in this investigation over the weekend and leading on through today, but he had to leave the state in a planned out-of-state excursion. But we have a couple of other agents here in the room with us today, and I want to thank them for their work. We'll get to that more on Friday. Moments ago here in City Hall, I was able to meet with Fargo Police Officer Zach Robinson. And Officer assured Officer Robinson that I have made a complete review in the last days of the evidence, the massive evidence that the BCI and other agencies, federal and state and local, have assembled in this investigation. I've evaluated the videotape from multiple sources of the scene of this event, photographs, evidence, testimonial evidence and information. Late yesterday afternoon, the body cam worn by police officer Zach Robinson during the course of this entire event. I assured Officer Robinson, that in evaluating all of that evidence, we kept in mind the circumstances and everything that was taking place a week ago Friday. In the wake of Mohammed Barakat's murderous, unprovoked attack, Officer Zach Robinson's use of deadly force was reasonable, it was necessary, it was justified, and in all ways, it was lawful. Mohammed Barakat engaged in a savage attack. He engaged in unprovoked, completely unprovoked assault by firing a long rifle, 223. I always get that wrong. 223. He unleashed what can only be described fairly as a murderous barrage of fire. But that isn't to say that it wasn't precise. In fact, it was. As we all know, the toll of that assault was 3 officers down, 1 officer deceased, 1 civilian shot as she was trying to flee the gunfire. The assailant, in addition to carrying that .223 caliber long rifle, it's important to note that it was he was utilizing a double-stacked mag, which essentially means in addition to having a large capacity magazine, it had 2 side by side. A total of 60 rounds were capable of being fired from that weapon, and most were. In his initial barrage, before he shot the civilian, he, as we said, and as has been reported, as you're all aware, he struck with multiple rounds Police Officer Dotis, Police Officer Hawes, and he mortally wounded Police Officer Waleen. As I said, Carly Kosowick, who was involved in the car accident, we'll get into the details of this on Friday. This was a car accident unrelated to the assailant, but Carly Kosowick was involved in the accident. She was standing on the sidewalk at the time when the gunfire broke out. She did as anybody would do, started running from the scene. The assailant turned his rifle toward her and hit her with 2 live rounds. At this time, Police Officer Robinson was away from the other officers who were standing 15, maybe 20 feet, the same distance that I am from the front row here. That's how far the officers were from Barakat, who was in his vehicle firing. Officer Robinson wasn't in that parking lot, though. He was out in the road, approximately 75 feet away from Mohammed Barakat. You will eventually, of course, have the body cam footage. You may have seen there's some stuff out there on social media. You'll see the body cam from the officers. We can't release that at this point. It remains a very active investigation. The fire from the weapon, from Barakat's weapon, is rapid fire. You will believe it to be when you hear it, as Officer Robinson reasonably believed it to be, a fully automatic fire. It's that rapid. The Officer Robinson, just happened to be standing behind, as from where the shooter is, he's standing away from, separated by one of the cars that was in the accident, because he was going to move a police vehicle up to ensure that it didn't get struck again after they moved one of the other vehicles out. Everything was very relaxed out there and nonchalant, but he just happened to be standing on the other side of the vehicle from where Barakat now has shot rapid fire. Before you can even think in this situation, you don't know where the shots are coming from. It's not clear at all, except that when you look up, you know exactly where it's coming from. He had the presence of mind to phone in, to radio call in, shots fired, not knowing if he was going to be the next officer struck, and knowing that help had to be called in and had to be on the way. Again and again, in watching through the evidence in this case, you see that presence of mind, the training, the professionalism. These are cliched words, but they are true. And the courage. The absolute courage under fire. Displayed by Police Officer Robinson. Incredible. He moved from behind the vehicle that was protecting him and exchanged fire with the assailant. At first, his first shots were from behind the vehicle, but he eventually moved around it. His shooting, even though at a distance, and any of you ever shot a firearm, a handgun, you're outmatched pretty significantly at 75 feet. Someone has a high-powered rifle with a scope on it. Officer Robinson kept his poise, kept his focus, and one of the rounds that he fired at Barakat disabled the long rifle and saved around 20 rounds that would have been still available for the assailant to shoot. He incapacitated it when it still had 20 rounds remaining to shoot. But Barakat wasn't done. As Officer Robinson moved closer in on the defendant, Barakat, who's now on the ground, he's continuing to call in. Only then was he able to even notice and see that he had 3 officers down, which he called in. They were the only 4 officers on the scene. He called in. He said, we have 3 officers down. Send everybody. And send everybody they did. But no one could get on scene before the officer is able to observe the defendant, whose rifle has been incapacitated, has now rearmed himself. He's got a 9mm that he's taken out, and then he's waving around. Officer Robinson gave repeated directives to the assailant. Hands up, put down the gun. I've watched the tape over and over. 16 directives. Put down the gun. The defendant was wounded, but was waving the gun around from his position in the parking lot, protected off from by his car. He persisted. Hands up again. The officer exchanges additional fire. Put your hands up. Drop the gun. Still doesn't drop the gun. Officer Robinson, at danger to himself and his life, knowing that there are more civilians hiding behind the car, just behind where the assailant is, crouched just 5, maybe 6 feet away. Officer Robinson continues to close ground on the assailant, goes around the vehicle, comes around the back, and gives one last command: put down the gun. He does not, and the threat was neutralized by the officer. I'm going to share some photos, not many. These are not ghoulish photos. These are informational photos. I will have them put up on the screen in a moment, and I'll describe. This is the car that was being driven by the assailant. And we'll talk more Friday about the actions that we did see, the movements prior to this incident. But again, he was not involved in the car accident, nor could he have known that it had happened. It was a pure fate moment that he happened upon this scene, and all of these officers are out there. He was on the street. He eventually ends up, this is the little parking lot where it was parked, and then there's a little grassway down to the road, and the accident would have been happening just to the left of what you see, where you see the Fargo police vehicle. That's where the accident between the 2 civilians occurred. The defendant jumped out of the front seat of this car after he shot the officers from inside the car. He absolutely ambushed them from inside that vehicle. They had no way to know. And he accessed one of the many weapons that he had in the vehicle, all of which were loaded. He jumped out and went around. You can also see in that vehicle some of the other contents, which we're going to talk about in detail on Friday. There were explosives in there. There were canisters with gasoline in there. And switch to the next photo, please. There was this homemade hand grenade, which was, in fact, operable with the fuse out the top. As you see, that was inside the vehicle as well on a vest. He didn't have a bulletproof vest. It was just sort of a, I don't know what you would call it, a shooting vest of some kind, and it had loaded magazines all throughout in every pocket. Switch to the next picture, please. Here's the contents of what the defendant, the assailant, Mohammed Barakat, had inside of his vehicle. I'll save you the counting. There are 1,800 live rounds of .223, which would fit into any one of those weapons, long rifles up in the right hand of that photo. He had those 3 long rifles. He had 4 handguns, including the 9mm that he was waving when the officer was directing him to put down the weapon. And the rest of these were either inside the vehicle. There was a suitcase that had weapons in it that he had rolled out of his apartment just prior to taking the drive that brought him up to where this incident took place. And again, that is not a bulletproof vest. It's just a vest that you could wear, and you keep all of the mags in there, and the rest, I guess, is self-explanatory. Can you go to the next picture? Oh, that's right. We just had those 3. Okay, we're going to leave that, but you can leave that up there, I guess. I'm going to ask the mayor's going to say a few words, as is the chief. And then we'll take some questions along the line. As we said in our announcement today, we're going to be talking just about the officer-involved shooting component of this. Again, having informed Officer Robinson, the full review of these facts and circumstances make it so clear that it was reasonable, it was justified, and lawful in every possible way. Thank you, and we'll get to your questions in a moment. Mr. Mayor?
We want to thank Drew Wrigley and the BCI for bringing this report so quickly to us, and we'll have another report on Friday to wrap up a lot of what you have found. It's clear to us that our police officers were ambushed on this attack. It's clear to us with their training and what they've been taught, they did the best reaction. Had Zach not neutralized this shooter, we would have had many more casualties. When you look at the amount of ammunition this shooter had in his car, he was planning on war mayhem in our community. I want to thank our officers and our 2 officers that are in the hospital recovering for their bravery and for standing up for our community. There is no question in my mind, well-trained, did the right thing. Chief Dirksen is here, and if his firemen had not reacted in the speed in which they did to save the 2 that were wounded, we would have lost them as well. It's clear to me this person was out to kill. I want to commend the police force, all the work they've done, the command staff, keeping the focus on our policemen and policewomen that serve us, because this is a real tough one to take. The officers that were speeding to the scene to help out, if I could have got there early, could something else happened? I don't think so. We did the things we had to do. Chief Stabowski has been fantastic in working with the troops, listening to them, talking to them, trying to find out what other things the community can do for that. The new theme in our community is We Are Fargo PD. And what that means is not only our officers that serve us part of that, but the community is. If you want a safe community, we all are part of this. We all are a part to heal this as well. And this is a time in which we need to grieve our fallen officer, honor him for his service to our community, pray for our 2 officers that are still recovering, and as a team work together to continue to make our community safe and the community we love. And I'll tell you right now, the officers are back on duty, the firemen back on duty, because they want to serve, and their role, they feel, is to be in the community serving us. Oftentimes you say, take some time off, do some other things. And Chief, you've had that over and over. They say, nope, I want to come back. I want the community to be safe. So I'll let the Chief take a few words as well. And then I think, Drew, we're going to open you up to questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Attorney General Wrigley, and really appreciate the expeditious efforts of your office, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Mr. Casey, Director Grabowska, all the folks there on the field. They've done tremendous work on this case. A couple things I want to highlight, going off of what the Attorney General said, are the absolute heroic efforts of Officer Zachary Robinson. He was essentially the last person standing between this individual, who was obviously dead set on some pretty horrific acts, targets unknown at this time, and on Friday, when the Attorney General is ready to conclude their investigation, we'll find out a little more about that. But certainly this individual had at his disposal the weaponry and the intent and the commitment to place great carnage upon our community, but for the acts of Zachary Robinson. As far as I'm concerned, all of these cops are heroes. We mourn the loss of Officer Willeen, who was just an excellent kid, committed to the same values and ideals that all of us are. We continue to pray for the recovery of Officer Dotis, Officer Hawes, all heroes in what they did. But Zach Robinson, in a split second, the shots go off, and yes, by God's grace, he wasn't standing with the three that were approaching this individual's car, completely unknowing that he was sitting there behind the door with a rifle, ready to start shooting at him. Zach immediately took cover, drew his firearm, got on the air, and engaged this individual from an extensive distance. So I don't know how many of you have gone through training or pistol training. 75 plus feet with a pistol is a pretty good range to be able to hit a target, especially when at the same time you're being fired at by a high-powered rifle. That's just incredible. The fact that he was able to hit this individual and disable that firearm, and he didn't stop there. He moved up. He moved towards the threat as the man continued to come up with firearms, and it was a continued threat. And he knew full well the whole time that until he neutralized this individual, his fellow officers couldn't get that critical medical care that ultimately saved their lives. So not only distance, but time. Probably not a lot of people here have been in a gunfight. Most gunfights in law enforcement last seconds. This gunfight lasted a skosh over 2 minutes. 2 minutes of exchanging gunfire, moving, taking cover, approaching this suspect as he was still armed and firing, and ultimately dispatching him. It's a hell of an effort, and it's an incredible act of valor and heroism. He also shows great restraint in what he does, as at each phase, he gave this individual multiple opportunities to surrender. This suspect was dead set on committing to fire, harm, and shoot people, going from one weapon to the other, refusing to stay down. Left Officer Robinson with no other choice but to ultimately fatally shoot him and stop that threat. Had he not done that, or had Officer Robinson not succeeded in what he was going to do, the likelihood that other people in our community would have been harmed is very high. I just want to point that out for everyone, because not only for Officer Robinson, but for all our folks, a lot of times we talk about uncommon valor. In our department and our profession, that is common valor. That's what every one of our officers has been trained to do, go towards the threat. He did exactly as he was trained, while his other colleagues were laying bleeding on the grass. And his quick action, 2 minutes is a long time, that's as quick as he could have ended this. Allowed for that quick life-saving medical attention by our Fargo Fire Department, who did a tremendous job. Jumped right out in an unsafe scene and provided that critical medical care. Got him transported out and in the hospital, continuing to recuperate. We really want to, we honor Jake and his sacrifice, which was tremendous and terrible. I think I just want to encapsulate a little bit about how significant of an action this was. Thank you.
We're going to wait till you get a microphone back there, and we'll get to all your questions.
All right. This is for Drew Wrigley. Take us through your thought process, the moment that you were told that this had happened here in Fargo, and what was your reaction?
Yeah, I can understand the question. I'm going to answer that on Friday. We'll talk about that stuff. And I only say that because I think that's the better context for this. And I'm glad to go through that to the extent that anybody cares what my thought process was on it. Because, I mean, this has been a matter that has really gripped the area. And law enforcement in particular, and law enforcement families. I had the privilege over the weekend to go to the hospital several times. And, you point that out a lot in law enforcement and people in the military too. Every one of these men and women have people who love them, who depend on them, care for them deeply, and every day they go out the door worried that a call like this is going to come. And I met a lot of just amazing people the last several days talking with them. So we'll be talking about, it's their state of what was in their minds and heart that it comes to bear on. And Chief, I didn't see it sitting over there, and I'm glad I got mentioned. We're going to talk about this more Friday. The results of this would have been even worse, much worse, without the Fargo Fire Department. Thank God on so many fronts that things, after this horrible thing, that things fell into place as they did, including people there to care for people who had absolute immediate need. I know you are, and you deserve to be so proud of their reaction to, they're not trained, they're not supposed to be going out there and getting shot at, and they didn't wait around to see if there was another shooter either. They were immediately moving in. And I hope you'll pass that on to them for us. Thanks.
Two questions. One, you mentioned the gun and the modifications. Was everything legally acquired as far as the weapon that he used? And then the other question I'd asked is, just from what you showed us today, it's on the screen now, what was in the vehicle, what you described, leads anybody that's reasonable to believe that there was something else planned. What do you believe that was?
That's what we'll talk about on Friday a little bit. We'll have an answer for you on that. I wish I could tell you what was motivating him, what's his why, but it's pretty clear to us as a result of forensic evaluations performed by our BCI, of whom when I was a Fed, you're supposed to make fun of other law enforcement. And I said for my 10 years as U.S. Attorney, just the critical role that the BCI plays, and to be able to work with them so closely as the Attorney General and watch them this weekend working with everyone else is remarkable. They, in a very short period of time, were able to get through some forensics that were seized and some other materials, and we're going to be talking to you about that on Friday. The weapons, though, I will answer that question. To our knowledge at this point, they were all legally purchased. We don't have other information. The investigation continues on. He was not a prohibited person. He did not have convictions that would preclude him from lawfully carrying firearms. And those are matters of interest, I suppose, too. But and there, I should mention, there was a search warrant that we executed on his residence that night and over the weekend, and additional firearms and other materials were seized there.
Describe the mannerisms of Bearcat. What was he doing? What was he acting like? What was he shouting back at officers, if anything?
I'm not going to get too far into that, but even when I do talk about that a little bit Friday, there's not much to add about that. He, I've spoken to Zach about that too. Just he pulled in so nonchalantly. I'll describe his actions more fully because he's on video. We've got video from neighboring businesses and other stuff. We've got once you know what the vehicle is, now you're going to notice it is otherwise unnoteworthy, and you're going to see it, and you see it go around, and he's casing the place up and stalking his way in and sizing up his opportunity, and then parks there and spends minutes watching the officers and waits until they are literally walking, having no reason to not. There's no reason not to, until they're literally walking to where roughly the same distance between myself and Scott Hennon at this point. That's when he lifts his firearm out the window and begins firing. It was an absolute ambush. There's no other way to describe that. The officers had no time, none whatsoever, to possibly get a hand on a weapon, let alone unholster a weapon. It is so rapid, the fire, that when I found out that it is not an automatic weapon, so to speak, I'll discuss that a little bit more on Friday. It'll fool everybody who listens to it, including Officer Robinson, when he gave his statement, what he believed it to be, reasonably. Like I said, 40 rounds he gets off before Officer Robinson so expertly just and poised and taking the time to just squeeze off that round that you hit dead center on him, and it catches the gun and incapacitates it, or there were another 20 very significant rounds coming his way.
Can you confirm if Bearcat, was he originally from Syria, and when did he come to Fargo?
I'm going to let the FBI speak to that. They'll be with us on Friday. They can address that question for you.
Are there any rumors about the shooting that you would like to put to rest?
I mean, there are definitely more rumors than I'm aware of, because I found myself looking through Twitter the other night. My eyes were rolling so intensely it didn't seem like it was good for my health. I mean, there's some good ones out there, and I just would caution people. You know, myself and anyone else up here that I'm looking at, I've never been known to be reluctant to discuss our work. We're paid by the public. The public gets to know what we do, and we've got good records on that. We want to get this information out. We do. The public needed to know right away, was there an ongoing danger to the public? And there wasn't. Very early on, I mean, I'm still driving over from Bismarck this way, and we knew that the threat had been neutralized. And nothing we learned over the weekend was different. And the public can always know. We would absolutely alert the public or whoever needed to know if there's additional dangers. There was a talk about possibly it was friendly fire from one or more of the officers who struck the civilian. That is just not true. And I don't think anybody meant anything by that. Maybe it was just speculation. No, it was Barkat saw her running and moves his rifle over and shoots her in a couple of rounds, catches her with a couple of rounds, and very significant injuries. I've had an opportunity to talk with her a couple of times. I spoke with her parents as well, and they're also, as are the families of the officers, just so deeply appreciative of what they know was extraordinary care. The police actions taken in this case, I would say the same with the investigative actions, are not your regular routine, just, like we build this in. I've stood in a lot of courtrooms. It's funny to me, the number of times you're in courtrooms, it's like people think they sign up for getting punched in the jaw when they're arresting somebody, or sign up for, everybody's fleeing these days. Everybody takes off running in their vehicles or resists arrest. That's not what they sign up for. That's a cultural shift. It's very significant. And so, we want to address those things. It wasn't the officers somehow an errant shot, which can happen in a moment of flurry like this. Not the case. That was another one. I'm trying to think of some reason when I started to read, I had a reason to hide his photograph, and I didn't want anybody to see it, I guess. Not the case. I'm not hiding his photograph. We don't have a photograph of him. We don't have any booking photographs of him because he's never been booked. So we don't have anything to offer to people there. The DOT does have his driver's license photo, which we're not at this point able to release. And it's just in North Dakota law. We'll examine that. If there's a way that we can get this photograph out, as you might imagine, that could help law enforcement efforts potentially. We could maybe get additional information. So we're on that. If I've missed any of the rumors, there are more, but I can assure people that us not discussing it at length the other day, the chief did a wonderful job at the press conference that we had here on Saturday. We've not been talking about what we're talking about here just because things have got to go in the normal course of the investigation. And it still remains active, by the way, but all the law enforcement entities are comfortable with us coming out today to have this discussion because this is an important matter that everyone understands and accepts can easily be resolved with the information we currently have, including video, audio, live testimony.
Two questions here. Phrases like more mayhem and great carnage were just used. Was this just the beginning of a potential mass shooting across the Fargo area with the street fair and the Red River Valley Fair going on?
I won't go any further, but to say I believe, yes, that it was. And I said to Officer Robinson upstairs, it's absolutely true. He was literally the last man standing between what was coming next and what you can see this assailant was armed for. And by the grace of God, he's standing away from where the other officers are when the shooting starts, and he can, in a composed fashion, order in other law enforcement, emergency, when he says, bring everyone. It really does get me, I got to tell you. Here he is, he's under fire, he knows we need everyone. And he's talking ambulance, everything, right? He doesn't incapacitate that 223. There's 23 more chances that he's in the position of his brother officers, none of which stops him from standing up and doing exactly what he did, everything he could to neutralize that threat. And if it doesn't happen, it's about a 4 or 5 minute drive to downtown Fargo. And we'll discuss Friday why we had reason to believe we knew where he was headed. And there were a lot of people down here Friday afternoon. And all law enforcement had a heavy response back. I mean, it would have been a catastrophic situation that he would have manufactured, but for the training, expertise, and bravery of a police department. And in the face and name, in this instance, of Officer Robinson standing out there, I can't underscore it enough. I just can't. I've been in and out of law enforcement for a lot of years, since about 1993. I've seen a lot. This stands out quite dramatically.
And my second question, the American flag decals up there on some of the magazine clips, any significance to that?
I don't have an answer for you on that. I don't know.
Can you clarify how many rounds were fired by Officer Robinson? And also, during the 2 minutes that the gunfire was happening, did any other officers arrive on the scene?
Thank you for the questions. I had intended to address both of those. Forgive me for not doing so. Officer Robinson returned fire. He was able to, in a relatively short period of time, but he's able to get off 30 or 31 rounds with his service weapon, a 9mm. He had to change clips in there. So you're starting off not only outgunned through no fault of his own. You don't have your semi-automatic, automatic weapon out there with you when you're doing a car crash, a fender bender. But he wasn't near his vehicle, so he couldn't get to it as the gunfire erupted. So he's outgunned with his 9mm. And also, I don't know what the capacity is in that, Chief. Is it a 20-round capacity in his? I think it's 17. Okay, 17. And he got off one, went through one mag, got into the other one. And 30 or 31 rounds were returned. 40 or 41 rounds fired, as I think I did say, by Mohammed Barakat, the 223 rounds, and another almost couple dozen left in the gun because the officer was able to disable it with a round.
I believe that this picture speaks thousands of words as to what the intent was for the community and for the city of Fargo. My question is, at this time, with the facts that we do have, are we considering this an act of terrorism?
I don't have an answer for you on that. If I did, I'd give it to you. We're looking into all those things, and those are federal statutes with that go to the heart of what is the motivation, either of the target that you're going after or what's motivating you to act. And I think that probably the FBI is the best to answer that based on the information that we have.
Hi, 3 just clarifying questions. You said he was in his car when he was firing at the officers initially, or was he was inside?
He was inside the car when he fired at the officers when he struck. And I don't want to don't time into this the order of them. It was so rapid, but Officer Wallin, who was just this distance away, Officer Haas, and Officer Dottis were all shot while he was inside the vehicle. He began to fire. He shot at I believe he was still in the vehicle when he shot at Carly as she started to flee in the wake of the officers dropping. And when the video is able to be released, and we understand the interest in that, we do. And I don't think it's just prurient. People want to know about what is happening here. it happens so rapidly. They go down very quickly. Like I said, no one had an opportunity to even get to a weapon. And she turned and tried to flee and was shot by him there also. He got up in the midst of his exchanging fire with Officer Robinson. He got up, exited the vehicle, and then kind of ran around the back of his vehicle around to the other side so that he had that buffer between himself and Robinson.
Okay.
And there was at least one round. I saw the vehicle on Saturday. There's at least one round that struck the top of the frame, and maybe others were pulled out of there. We may have some more details for you on that on Friday. And then he got to the other side, and that's where Officer Robinson, I listened to his the audio of his interview by BCI yesterday, and he literally says, and he actually speaks out loud a couple times on tape too. He's really he's coaching that's not the right word. He's talking himself through this at times too, and he is saying. He said during the interview, though, that he was thinking, I've got to squeeze off some good ones. I've got to, he just make sure he's extra composed. And he did that. That's an incredible presence of mind in that circumstance. And I think, I don't know how you'd say he didn't save the situation, because he's still completely outgunned. He's only got those number of mags, and that guy still's got at least 20 rounds left in that rifle. It's an incredible act.
And did Barakat ever shoot any rounds from the 9mm that he was waving around?
We do not believe so. No, we don't believe so. He was waving it around and refused to put it down. And the legal circumstances would have there was latitude for Officer Robinson to more rapidly, and be careful how I want to be delicate. He showed incredible restraint, at risk to himself, in continuing through, as I said, 16 directives. The last one being, after the defendant persisted, he came around, he had no choice but to end the threat, and he did.
Obviously, this is a lot of ammunition and a lot of guns. Is this going to prompt any conversations or laws about further restricting how much ammunition or what type of guns people can get in North Dakota?
I don't really have any idea what it's gonna prompt along those lines. I don't have an answer for you on that today. I don't know.
One question for Drew, and I don't know if you'd be willing to answer a question, Chief. Drew, how's Officer Robinson doing? You just had a conversation. Any insight you can give to us about how he's doing just mentally and emotionally? And then, Chief, didn't know if you could give us an update on the 2 officers who are still hospitalized today, please.
Well, I'm going to respect his privacy, but I don't think he'd mind me mentioning that I don't think he's merely being stoic. And that's what I think being stoic would be, just merely and say, I'm just going to decide to shut it off. He's a hell of a nice young man, I'll tell you that much. He's professional, he's smart, I'll tell you sharp, and whether he accepts it or not, he's one of the most courageous. That conduct is some of the most courageous I've ever witnessed. And he seems and is deeply relieved that some lives were able to be saved, and obviously deeply saddened. Lean, I'll let the chief talk to that, but he's holding up, I would characterize it as very well, very professional, and I feel like I'm on pretty solid ground saying, isn't questioning for 1 second, did he go into the right line of work? He knows that he did. And he nodded at me when I said, you were the last man standing. You were the last thing between there and what was going to come next. He just nodded. He knows, and humbly accepts that. And is, how is he going to say it? He's marked for life by this, by the negative part of it. And marked for life, too, is a guy who sought this work, was trained to do this work, and when all the chips were down, where everybody had to depend on him, he delivered big time. Big time. Chief, I didn't mean to talk too much for your guy up there because that was a nice conversation.
Absolutely. No, you're right on. Zach's a very humble guy, very competent individual, just a credit to our department, and I think symbolic of the men and women that we have on our department. Very proud of all of them. In terms of our two officers, Andrew and Tyler up at the hospital, still critical, stable condition. I guess I would say moving and, improving, but, we still need those thoughts and prayers for them. They've got some obstacles to overcome, and we're going to continue to monitor that and support their families.
And this is for Wrigley. Final question I have for you, sir, is, you guys have been talking about, the heroic efforts by the officers, by everyone involved in this. But speaking about Officer Robinson, what do you want the state of North Dakota to know about what he has meant to the situation and what he did to save a lot of people?
Yeah, I think that's actually easy. Be worthy. Be worthy of what he did. Be worthy of what all these men and women do. Be worthy. Help them. Help law enforcement. Let's help turn back the culture where it's shifted the last 10 years, the violence towards officers. Let's do our part on that. Let's put in a couple of laws that we need to do. I'll talk about that another day. Be worthy. Be worthy of what they're willing to do. And someday when this video comes out, the video from the body cam, watch it and understand that there are these people who will do these things that we won't and that we rely on them to do. And as I always say, back the blue, back the blue. Don't just go to their funerals. Don't just show up at the Peace Officers Memorial. Don't just seek their support when you need it. Back the blue. Back the blue. Do things to say our laws are worthy of the work that they do, what they risk doing. We're neutralizing threats. We're putting people away who are violent, who are harmful to our society and to law enforcement. Be worthy of it. Make tough choices. Where necessary, be harsh. They're doing their job. They shouldn't have to face these people so quickly again. And people say, well, that's not what happened in this case. That's right. But you ask, they face this every day. One of the agents standing in the back of this room on Saturday said to me, this is the new normal. I said, I know it. You and I know it, brother. We've been talking about it for a long time. Treatment of law enforcement. The vast majority of the public loves our law enforcement. We support our law enforcement. But too many for too long don't, and it's eroding and getting worse. I'm old enough to remember it hasn't always been this way, and violence towards police and towards our communities was dealt with harshly. Reform, yes, we need reform. We're all about reform. We want to battle recidivism, yes, we do all those things. Some people need to be extracted from our communities for long periods of time to protect the public. This isn't the perfect case for that. I'm going to stop on this, but I'm never going to stop on this issue. I ran for Attorney General for this. I've been involved in law enforcement because of this. Be worthy. No one's going to watch this film and not feel a little sense of like your own guilt. Are we even good enough for this? This young man has a young child. He has a wife. He has a young child. He has another baby on the way. He is putting it on the line every day, even when he's out at the scene of a fender bender. Every day. And I just told you, before this question, I can tell this about him. He went into this work with a purpose. He is extremely well trained. And he answered the call. Who can know? When the chips are all down, who can really know how you're going to conduct yourself in that moment? He knows. Be worthy of it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you Friday.
All right, Ronnie, that wraps it up. Do we know yet Friday what time have we got a time yet on Friday's press conference?
We did, to my knowledge, no. I will double check that with Tom Tucker, but I did not hear one. No.
I don't think it's been released yet. Boy, I'll tell you, Drew gave us way more than I thought he was going to give us. That's for sure. Holy smokes, man! I mean, way more. I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a quick. In and out that Officer Robinson, is cleared of any wrongdoing or, but man, he gave information, and we'll get the word for sure on Friday, but we pretty much now know, and Steve Hallstrom joins me as well, also Captain Brian Ewan, North Dakota Highway Patrol. But Brian's not up here for this or up here for other things, but if you want to jump in, Brian, you're more than welcome to, and understand if you don't. But Steve, we pretty much know this guy was going to the street fair, and it would have been absolute. I can't even use a word. My God.
First of all, let me say that I'm not at a loss for words very often, but what we just saw there, not just the raw data, but the emotion in Drew Wrigley's voice and him pounding the table for, you better understand what this means and be worthy of that sacrifice. Holy smokes. Yeah. I hope Minneapolis City Council was watching this video. Another subject for another day. But you're 100% right, Jay. And Drew, I think, was trying to choose his words carefully and maybe not quite go there yet. But it's certainly a couple of times there were references to downtown. And we all know what was going on downtown on Fargo on a Friday afternoon. And if you needed to get people's attention any further, just knowing – I mean, how many of us have seen their wife and daughter go down to the street fair on Friday afternoon at 3:30?
Go down, grab a bite to eat, do a little shopping. There's thousands of people down there. And if Officer Robinson would not have been able to stop this guy, because you heard what he said, Drew Wrigley said, Robinson, bring everybody. So if this guy would have got out of there, you have all your law enforcement now at 25th Street. This guy's basically wide open with not a whole lot there to stop him. This would have been absolute carnage. And Drew, in the beginning of the press conference, said targets unknown at this time. But then later on, when asked, he said, yes, it was the start. It was the start of what would have been complete carnage in Fargo. Mm-hmm. He was going to that street fair. He wasn't going to and Drew even made the point. He even said it. 3 to 4 minutes to drive downtown from where he was at.
Yeah, I've tried to play that out in my head. If he gets out of that scene and gets up 25th to Main, which is how you'd get downtown. Now, there is a fair amount of traffic there most days, so we don't know. I mean, you'd like to think maybe they could have caught him at University on his way or something, but we don't know. And law enforcement's good, but how good are you when, like, we look back now and it's 20/20 vision. And I say this all the time about law enforcement. We look back on an incident and now we know what happened. Yeah. They don't know what's about to happen.
Split-second decisions, adrenaline.
And when you see that shot of all the ammo and all the weapons that guy had, and if I saw it red, that was just what was in his car. That wasn't what was in the apartment.
No, that was just in the car. It was 1,800 rounds of .223, 3 long rifles, 4 handguns, tactical vest, not a bulletproof vest, but a tactical vest where he could put all those mags in and basically just start walking around just emptying mags and grabbing another one. And the gun, it was not a fully automatic weapon, which I didn't think it was. But, talking to Drew, it was pretty hard to discern whether or not it was, but it was a double stack mag that had the 60-round capability. This guy got 40 rounds off before, Zach was able to get his off. And like Drew said, think about Officer Robinson. I mean, my God, this guy, 40 rounds, Zach gets going, he drops off 30. This guy still had rounds. And for Zach at 75 feet to be able to take that gun out of that guy's
out. That's unbelievable.
That tell me there's not a higher power, whatever you believe in, God or whoever, but there wasn't a higher power out there that day stopping this. I mean, that is I shoot handgun. I mean, Captain Newan is in here. You shoot. I mean, Captain, 75 feet with a handgun, and you take that weapon out of the dude's hand. That is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I mean, just the heroic actions that Officer Robinson displayed on Friday, just unbelievable. I mean, we train at those distances, but it's most of our engagements aren't on those distances when we're talking about pistol rounds. But we train for it specifically for these situations, because we have times when we're outside of our cars, we don't have access to those rifles. The only deadly force that we have is these pistols, and so we have to train at that. We do train at that, and it is not the easiest skill to acquire or learn or even maintain, right? It's a difficult skill to control your pistol and be able to put rounds downrange under fire.
Yeah,
right.
That's
Under
the thing,
fire
too.
with somebody that has
Your heart's pounding.
a more powerful weapon than you have, and accurately shoot that weapon.
Yeah, I thought that just happened in Western movies. Somebody shoot the gun out of a guy's hand. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't intentional. Maybe it was. We don't know, but it doesn't matter. But that's where you say,
doesn't matter. He stopped the guy.
As much as we have a loss of life with a 23-year-old young man, which is an absolute tragedy. And I get it if somebody says, how can you say that God was involved, but you look at what could have happened that day.
God, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it was just something played into this because, again, like you said, Drew Wrigley does not get choked up. He just doesn't. He's just, and you could hear him, I mean, you could, as he's explaining what he could, you could hear the fear in his voice of what this could have been. I mean, this is just, I can't imagine what he's going to tell us on Friday. I cannot imagine what he's got for us on Friday, and the FBI has for us on Friday.
And didn't you see, and it was asked during the press conference, the clips that had the flag decals on them? Didn't it make you just want to throw up when you just see that?
Yeah.
And it's probably incidental. I don't know that there's any significance there, but just to see those flags on those clips and know what happened was completely against what this country's all about is just stunning. And, we live in a part of the world where I think people are generally and genuinely appreciative of what law enforcement does. But I can only hope that Sean Hannity picks this up, that Newsmax picks this up. I don't hold out much hope for the people at NBC Nightly News or whatever, but I hope that people all over the country watch that from beginning to end, and because there's so many lessons there, and there's so many things to be made aware of and to think about as a country, and how we deal with things like this, and maybe how we go forward. You think about street fair, you think about downtown, and you have to wonder how this changes protocol for events going on in the future. Because a street fair, Jay, you can drive right up if you can get lucky enough to get a good parking spot. You just walk in. There's no gate.
There's no security.
At Red River Valley Fair,
Fair,
there's a gate you got to throw. This thing is you just walk in there, and unless someone sees you, carrying 10 guns with you, which probably a guy's got a way to conceal a lot of that. People are at 3 o'clock on a Friday. They're not worrying about looking for suspicious characters.
And people,
they're buying a T-shirt off the rack.
And people nowadays don't really look at watch their surroundings. Their faces in the phone, or if you're at a street fair, you're buried in one of the tents looking at whatever the item. You're not paying attention for this guy. If this is where he was going, they were going to find out on Friday. If this is where he was going, this could have turned out to be one of the biggest tragedies in his country.
Las Vegas.
Let me grab
more.
Jenny and Fingal. Jenny J. Thomas Show.
Hey, Jay.
Hey.
First of all, God bless Fargo. God bless the police department, the fire department, emergency services, and everything. I live in Fingal. I'm sitting here, and the first thing that crossed my mind was the street fair. Okay, but I have one question. Okay, so there's a car accident. What caused that car accident that he was involved in?
Well, he was not involved in that car accident. Drew kind of alluded to that today without getting into it. He'll get into that more on Friday. But if you listen close, Drew said that the car accident happened, and basically this guy saw that as an opportunity, and you could see him on surveillance driving around casing a place, and pulls into the parking lot, and he shot those three officers from inside the car. Captain, go ahead.
Our agency, the Highway Patrol, has been asked to investigate that crash.
Okay.
So that crash is completely unrelated to
Muhammad
Barakat. So they're completely unrelated.
Well, it's kind of the blessing in disguise. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
Because he got trapped he got trapped in that. And the girl who was shot, and I'm following all this out here in Fingal, North Dakota, and have law enforcement background, EMT, all that kind of stuff. And there's so much that goes on. I mean, it's something you never expect.
No, that's true.
The reaction to the awesome job that everybody pulled together and got done. And then you listen to some of the stories that come up, and you have to have time to investigate, get a grasp of it. But the first thing is to take care of the victim.
That's right. That's right. Jenny, appreciate the phone call. John in Fargo, hang on. Ronnie, you want to do a legal ID for us?
Yeah, this is WDAY, AM 970 and FM 93.1 Fargo, Moorhead. It is 4:01 p.m.
All right, I know we got calls coming in. Captain Brian Newen is here. We were going to talk about the new seatbelt law and other laws going on the books. We got to take phone calls, and if you want to hang out and be part of this, and I understand if there's stuff that comes up, because I understand how agents say, look, this is their investigation, but if you want to hang out and jump on, man, we'd love to have you on, too. And we'll talk about the law. We'll throw them in there as well, the new laws coming up.
I'd be happy to stay on.
Hallstrom, Steve, you're going to hang out?
Yes, sir.
All right, hang out. Callers, hang out. We'll get you 701-293-9000. I guess all three of us can say, and Brian, you might have known a little bit more being in law enforcement, but we had heard rumors. And, a lot of stuff or not a lot, but some of the stuff that Drew said today, we had heard, but we didn't report it because we did not have confirmation, and we will not do that, even though we had heard it. To hear it come out of the Attorney General's mouth, it's just mind-blowing. It's a loss for words. What could have happened? What could have happened Friday was, I don't know what to say, man. I just don't. But let's do this. I know, Ronnie, you got to get caught up. 701-293-9000. Email studio@wdayradionow.com. Another press conference on Friday, and I think we're going to get the real download on Friday of everything or almost everything. And I think that's when we're all going to be going, oh, my God. It's going to be even more jaw-dropping than the little bit we got today. All right, let's do a quick break. We'll come back to the phones. Captain Brian Newen, North Dakota Highway Patrol, is with us. Also, Steve Hallstrom, and his new show starts on Monday, 4 to 6. And I'm going to apologize to Steve right now. That first hour is going to be kind of slow because I'm still on the air till 5. But
I was surprised you were talking about a competitor there.
That last hour, hey, look, I had Big 98.7 on earlier today, so why not, man? All right, it's 4:03. This is the Jay Thomas Show, which, by the way, we like to identify as number one in the afternoon. 4:03.
Help Fargo become the home of the world's largest axe-throwing festival at Fargo Billiards and Gastro Pub on July 27th through the 30th. There's a national axe-throwing competition, knife-throwing, dart and cornhole tournament, live music, and a comedy show. So see some of the best axe throwers in the world compete and enjoy all the action of the Far Throw Axe Throwing Festival. Don't miss it at Fargo Billiards and Gastro Pub, just west of the I-29 on 32nd Avenue South in Fargo.
Today's Jay Thomas Show is sponsored by JK Property Partners, delivering dreams by opening doors. Broadcasting live from the Miller High Life Studio, this is the Jay Thomas Show on WDAY.
If you haven't been to downtown Fargo lately, it's worth another look. With something new around every corner, you are bound to fall in love with your city all over again. Envision yourself in the heart of the energy and visit livedowntownfargo.com to see everything from historic character lofts to brand new state-of-the-art apartments, all surrounded by locally owned shops and restaurants. Visit livedowntownfargo.com or call 701-430-8615 and find a new place to call home in downtown Fargo.
No matter where you are in life, you need a car you can trust. That's why you see so many Subarus on the road today. Subaru comes with 4-season symmetrical all-wheel drive standard. Check out Muscatel's in-stock inventory now, or claim one of Muscatel's Subaru's incoming models, and you can enjoy Subaru safety that much sooner. Muscatel Subaru, just off the interstate in Moorhead, or online at muscatelsubaru.com. Subaru, built to last.
At United Automotive Tech Center, we service imported and domestic vehicles. Our expert technicians do tune-ups, carburation, fuel injection, brake and chassis service, starting and charging, electrical systems, wheel alignment, shocks and struts, engine repair, tires, and more. When you get down to it, we're here for any maintenance your car requires. United Automotive Tech Center with 3 locations, 2 in Fargo and 1 in West Fargo.
Expert repairs from people who care. United Automotive Tech Center.
Boost your crop's health with Domark 230ME and Badge SC fungicide exclusively from Gowan, USA. Domark's systematic action teams up with Badge's outstanding mixing properties for unbeaten disease control on sugar beets, dried edible beans, and canola. Experience the power of 2 different modes of action with Domark and Badge. Don't wait. Contact your local ag retailer and ask about Domark 230ME and Badge SC. Always read and follow label directions from Gowan, USA.
The defending American Association champion, Fargo Moorhead Redhawks, return to action at Newman Outdoor Field July 20th through the 23rd. This homestand includes a business day game, entertainment act Wacky Chad, championship t-shirt giveaway, and much more. For more information on upcoming promotions and to get your tickets, call 235-6161 or go online to fmredhawks.com. FM Redhawks Baseball. We've got the bases covered for fun.
Welcome to Hope Days 2023 from your friends at Keith Irie Pioneer Seed. Enjoy the fun and events of Hope Days. Parade, car show, old-time tractor drive, street dance, great food, and something for just about everyone. We'll see you at Hope Days. From Keith Irie, Matt Powell, and Chelsea Beaton at Keith Irie Pioneer Seed of Hope, North Dakota. Pioneer Seed has leading products to meet your needs. Contact Keith Irie Pioneer Seed. They're here for you.
The weather is brought to you by Sweet Shots in Fargo, where every Monday is half-price gameplay from 5 p.m. to close. And every Wednesday, get 2 pounds of wings and 2 pizzas for $45 at Sweet Shots in Fargo.
There'll be a slight chance for an isolated shower or thunderstorm through this evening, but it'll favor east and Minnesota. Otherwise, we'll have west-northwest winds around 10 to 25 miles per hour with partly cloudy skies. For tonight, skies clear out down to low temperatures in the upper 50s, light wind from the northwest 5 to 10, and on Thursday, winds pick up a little bit around 10 to 20. Again, an isolated sprinkle will be possible throughout the day, otherwise partly cloudy with highs near 80. From the WDAY Skywatch Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Justin Storm.
Do you love working on cars but don't love your current job? If so, we need to talk. Hi, I'm Matthew Carlson, owner of Fix It Forward Auto Care. We're a family-owned full-service auto repair shop looking to hire skilled automotive technicians. With our state-of-the-art shops, great work environment with competitive pay and benefits, you'll enjoy a great job with a bigger purpose and a lot of opportunity for advancement. Visit FixItForwardAutoCare.com to apply. Fix It Forward Auto Care, the name you trust for car repair.
Fix It Forward Auto Care.
Don't worry about it. Just take it to Bailey's.
Hi, I'm Rinda, and we have teenage drivers. Therefore, we have had the opportunity, or should I say opportunities, to utilize many of the services that Bailey's has to offer. From minor scratches to major dent repairs, the team at Bailey's does not disappoint. They work with our busy schedules and within our budget. We love Bailey's so much that we give their detailing packages as gifts as well.
Check out Bailey's Auto Body for your collision repair needs at Bailey'sAutoBody.com.
Just take it to Bailey's.
You go with what works, you trust your experience, and make decisions based on proven results. That is why ag producers like you have chosen Dakota Bank for over half a century and made us one of the largest ag lenders in the nation. Hi, I'm Chad Prewy, ag banker with Dakota Bank in Fargo. No matter the challenges, we are here to help you navigate the highs and lows to grow your business by financing your operating needs, improve your land, or purchase equipment. We all rely on you, and we're just happy to return the favor. Go with allies, go with trust, go with Dakota Bank. Equal housing lender, member FDIC, trust and insurance are not FDIC insured.
Hello, this is Matt Lehman and Mike Walski with Fargo Roofing and Siding.
Due to the recent hailstorms that have hit the area, your insurance company may owe you a new roof, gutters, and more.
Fargo Roofing and Siding is your advocate through the insurance claim process. Make sure you call us before you file a claim.
To schedule your free hail inspection, visit us online at fargoroofing.com.
Premium quality, premium service, Fargo values, Fargo Roofing and Siding.
More of the Jay Thomas Show in 60 seconds.
Why do you listen?
It's just nice to have local.
I listen from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night.
I just want to stay informed while I'm on the go.
It keeps me up to date with everything going on in the world.
When you put the lights on in the barn, the radio went on.
It moves pretty quick so I can get the message and get on with my day.
Oh, listen in the barn, skid loader, tractor, and just about anywhere you can.
Why do you listen? Go to whyilisten.com, tell us why you listen, and you have a chance to win $500. Visit whyilisten.com today.
The pets in our homes love us, from the moment they meet us until the day they leave us. Homeless animals would do the same if only they had the chance. Be an animal's hero and adopt. Turtle Mountain Animal Rescue has the perfect four-legged family member for you right now. Find yours at turtlemountainanimalrescue.org.
Pucklet Chevrolet Buick GMC in Valley City makes it easy to find your next Chevrolet Buick GMC or pre-owned vehicle by offering a great selection at our best prices possible.
All right, 12 minutes after 4 o'clock, and we're going to take this right till 5 o'clock. No more commercial breaks. Phone lines are open, 701-293-9000. Email studio at WDAYradionow.com. We're also simulcasting on our sister station, AM 1100, The Flag, at 92.3 FM. And in studio with me is Captain Brian Newen, North Dakota Highway Patrol, and just having to be here today because we were going to talk about the new laws that take effect on the books come August 1st when it comes to driving in the state of North Dakota. One of those is the seatbelt law. Never thought that Drew Wrigley would go as long as he did, meaning that we had thought that he was going to go in there and say, okay, Officer Zach Robinson, he did what he had to do, he's cleared, but Drew kind of opened up on more stuff, guys, than we thought. Steve Hallstrom also joins me, and for you folks on the Flag starting Monday, the new show, Steve Hallstrom Show, will debut from 4 to 6 on AM 1100 The Flag, 92.3 FM. Let me grab some calls here. John's been waiting quite a long time. Hey, John, you're up, Jay Thomas Show.
How you doing, Jay?
Good, but still kind of jaw-dropped after that press conference.
Yeah, I have to apologize for that. I missed the conference. I actually had an appointment that I had to be at, but I caught everything from about 3:45 or so on. Yep. And what I caught of it, they were saying that they thought this guy was planning on heading down to the street fair.
Well, he didn't. Drew Wrigley alluded to that in the beginning, and that'll all be podcast. It should be up after 5:30 tonight on WDAYRadioNow.com or Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts. Targets unknown at this time. That's what he said in the beginning, but then later on in the press conference, I can't remember which reporter asked. I think it might have been Matt Henson.
It was.
Asked him about that again, and Drew said, yes, it was the start of carnage in Fargo. And then Drew had made the comment, it's only 3 to 4 minute drive to downtown Fargo. So that tells you what we're going to probably hear on Friday, because there will be another press conference on Friday, and that's where we're going to probably get the full download on everything.
Okay. Yeah, well, and I'll have to check out that podcast, I guess, this evening sometime. But I was just going to throw it out there because I know we're going to have people out there wanting to make this, and I know we talked about it yesterday, that are going to want to make this a gun control issue, a gun control subject, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I, for one, I guess, I'm pretty sure you know who you're talking to.
I recognize now, yeah.
When we go to the street fair or whatever, that's part of my job as a quote, as far as I'm concerned, as a quote unquote toxic masculine male. that the society doesn't want to talk about anymore because that's not good. But that's part of my job is to protect my family.
Nope.
It doesn't take a bad. I mean, granted, what Officer Zach did was phenomenal. I mean, that's astounding.
Unbelievable.
And it's great that he was able to do that. But, and I'm not saying that I could do it or that I would do it or that anybody should claim that they can. Until you're put in that situation, you don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that, it's one of those things. As part of my job is to protect my family.
Yep. No,
and it doesn't take a badge to do that.
No, I understand what you're saying.
John, Steve here. I want to jump in quick too. We get it that you have a gun you carry, but think about the street fair. That's not like going to Big Iron where you got a bunch of good old boys and they're probably half of them are packing. You're going downtown. It's moms and kids. Yeah, there's some guys down there too, but that's not an environment where you'd expect to encounter somebody like you. Now, you might be there, but this guy's, kind of stacking the odds in his favor and saying, I'm going to go somewhere where probably nobody's expecting it, and I've got a lot of easy targets.
John, when you see and hear what this guy had in his vehicle, it's jaw-dropping. Let me run it by you. He had 1,800 rounds of .223. He had 3 long rifles, 4 handguns, tactical vest, not a bulletproof vest, but a tactical to carry all the magazines, umpteen million magazines. It was crazy. This guy, if that's where he was going, he would have rolled in there. There's no metal detectors. There's no security to go through. You've got people that are not paying attention. They're out enjoying a street fair, having a corn dog, looking at knickknacks and paddywhacks. This guy could have rolled in there and just immediately started mulling people down. It would have been brutal. John, appreciate the phone call. Before I get to the other calls, I have full lines. Captain Brian Ewood, we were talking earlier, Zach Robinson, Officer Robinson, for him to be able to do what he did, I mean, hits this guy at 75 feet away. This isn't like being at the range practicing. I mean, this is adrenaline rushing, bullets flying. For him to be able to do that, get that firearm out of that guy's hand and continue on. I mean, to have that kind of cool, calm, collect, mind is amazing. I know officers go through a ton of training. How do you train for something like this? Because this is, like I said, this is different than being at the rifle range.
Part of it is just repetition. Mm-hmm. Practice makes perfect. That's part of it. It's really hard to mimic that type of environment, right? So we try and do that through scenario training. We have, and different departments have simulators that they use, but you try and develop training programs that simulate some sort of stress while you're going through those things. You can never mimic this. This is just something that's completely unfathomable. It's stuff that we prepare for. It's the stuff that we play mental games for. If I'm out on an incident and I get done with that, we tell all of our people, play those mental games. What if? Yeah. And that helps you prepare for situations like this. Again, when we talk about reacting like this, it's gross motor functions that come into play, and those are the things that we teach our people for stressful situations. And we talked about before the Officer Robinson shooting this gun and incapacitating that gun. That's a common thing that happens in officer-involved shootings. If you have a weapon pointed at you, that's what you are focused on. A lot of times that's where your rounds go towards. The ones that are on target will actually go towards that gun because that's what you're focusing on. That's something you see. So it's not uncommon for that to happen. It's nothing intentional. Mm-hmm. He wasn't trying to shoot that gun. I know he wasn't trying to shoot that gun out of the hand.
He was trying to take the target
officer
down.
Was trying to get rid of the threat.
Yeah.
And once the threat's gone, then you reassess and you move on throughout whatever the other things that you need to do. But you just unbelievable. Like if you think about the situation, what they described, you'll see more of it with videos and more descriptions on Friday. And just the things that I know is just unbelievable heroism in this case. Underneath just that amount of duress, knowing that you don't know where your partners are. There's other citizens around that you're dealing with. Just unbelievable that how he reacted to that. But like Chief Zabalski said, it's not uncommon valor. It's common valor amongst the ranks of people that wear the badge that I wear, the people that wear the badges of the other departments that work in this area and across the nation. Do we make mistakes? Yes. But for the most part, this is this type of stuff that we're reacting to, and we're helping our communities in.
Steve, did you want to jump before I get to the calls?
Yeah, gosh, there's so many things. But Brian, I wanted to ask you now for Chief Zabolski, and for him to go into his team and his team meetings and look his people in the eye. What is his job now to try to lead his team back to maybe where they quote unquote were before? Because that's got to be a massive morale kind of rebuild on short order.
They have a very large department, and I know they have a lot of great resources in that department when it comes to internal, external, for mental health, for just peer-to-peer support, all those different things that probably when I started 20 years ago we didn't have in place, but they have those things in place. I know he's there for his people. I know his command staff is. I know their sergeants, their officers. There's just so much support amongst themselves. You have individuals in that agency. There's even individuals in other agencies that really want to come to work. They want to continue serving their communities, and there's other people that are going to need some time, and they're working through those issues with all the different ranks of their department. And we're here to support them. And this is not about other agencies. This is about the Fargo Police Department right now. We are Fargo PD. That's what all the law enforcement community around in this area is. I'm a member of the West Fargo community, but the same thing. We are Fargo PD, and we're here to support them through whatever they need, whether it's taking calls for service for them, backing them up on stops, helping them with whatever they have going on to make sure that they're getting through this successfully and their people are getting through this successfully. But this really is about the Fargo Police Department and everybody in this community. I know there's a lot of community support, and especially amongst the other people that wear brown and blue in this area for the individuals that work for this organization. Law enforcement in North Dakota is a very small community, and we all have to help each other in times like this and just other things that are going on, and we are here to support them.
701-293-9000 for you folks listening on AM 1100, The Flag at 92.3 FM. This is the Jay Thomas Show over here on 970 WDAY. Steve Hallstrom is in here with me. Also, you're hearing Captain Brian Neewood, North Dakota Highway Patrol. I will say this because I have gotten some emails. I got some more today as well, and after the press conference. Tomorrow is West Fargo Cruise Night. That is a massive event. And I have some people that have reached out and are concerned. I can tell you this right now. I placed a call. I talked to Chief Dennis Otternis this morning and asked him, are we doing things different? Are people safe? And I will tell you that the Chief Otternis he's on top of things. You don't have to fear going to West Fargo Cruise. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we got to live. As soon as we stop living, we give a victory to the other side of this thing.
Exactly.
One quick comment, Jay, before you hit back to the calls. Kind of going back on what Brian said, hopefully this can be a time that galvanizes our community. There's so much division, seems like everywhere, and people are on each other's nerves and emotions are high. I hope this can be kind of a reset where we say as a community, all right, let's put aside some differences. Let's come together here. Mm-hmm. I did also want to mention that I was disappointed, but I guess I shouldn't have been surprised to hear the gun control question come up in the press conference today.
Got it too.
The guns were obtained legally, as far as we know. That was one detail. Scott Hennon's question, and Drew Wrigley said, as far as we know, all the guns obtained legally. There can be a time for all of that. But
now is not the time.
Now is not the time to do that, and because that'll get us into a 10-hour conversation about other things as well.
Hey, Tom, out in West Fargo, thanks for hanging on. You're up on the Jay Thomas Show.
Hey, Jay, to build on what Steve said about stop living, so I deliver food out here, and I'll tell you, Saturday was awful in that it was very busy. People are scared. Mm-hmm. They're still scared because they want their food delivered in. They're not going out.
Yeah, and that's understandable.
So it is, but it's something that all of us that support the law enforcement and everyone is to encourage, to reassure that this was a tragic but isolated incident in this area. We're not Minneapolis or Chicago or something else. And if maybe they can reassure that Drew Wrigley and other ones can reassure that law enforcement has this under control, that people can start going because the restaurants are not as full as they are. Some are, but a lot of them aren't. Because so many people are ordering out. kind of my 2 cents of what we're observing, and I've talked to other people that deliver. They're seeing the exact same thing.
Tom, appreciate the phone call, 701-293-9000. Email studio at WDAYRadioNow.com. You cannot live in fear because then the bad people, they win, and we do not want them to win. But with that said, you also have to, you got to be safe. Keep an eye on your surroundings. And we do have fantastic law enforcement. The one thing, I've said this before, I've lived in many parts of the country over my career, and I have never lived in a community where the agencies work so well together. And it doesn't matter if they're on the Minnesota side or if they're in the county or the state. They work together. They're all there working with each other. And know that our law enforcement agencies are going to do everything is in their power to make sure, and they always have and they always will, to make sure that people are safe, whether it's big events like cruise night or concerts coming up at the lights. Law enforcement is going to do their damnedest to make sure that community, this community, is safe. I will say this. I can tell you, Red River Valley Fair. If this is a big if that perp, if it was in his mind to go to the Red River Valley Fair, it would have been a huge mistake for him. All right,
different story.
It would have been a huge. The story would have been completely different. Let's go to Bernie. Bernie, you're up. Jay Thomas Show.
Yes, is it true that the shooter just left the mosque before the shooting?
Not true.
Not true.
Not true.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Bye. Let's see. Jim, you're up. Jay Thomas Show.
What really struck me about the whole press conference was when the Attorney General mentioned how we need to have tougher laws, basically punishments that put these bad people away from society, okay? But in the last legislative session, that's what he wanted. He wanted a larger department. He wanted tougher laws, and they wouldn't give it to him.
Nope.
The legislators wouldn't give it to him. There was a big local, KFG was morning loudmouth every day railing against him, actually having to get more money for his budget so he could fight crime. Well, we need it.
Yes,
and
we do.
It's a perfect example of why we need that. His department needs the funding.
Steve, you said it the other day, Saturday, when you were doing live coverage. Look, Jim, appreciate the phone call, 701-293-9000. This state's got cash. You know what? Yeah, build more prisons. Build more mental health facilities. And he's right. Drew Wrigley tried. He tried as hard as he could. Look, man, we got to crack down on this. And you had some lawmakers that just would not get on board with it, and we basically came up with excuses for the criminals why they shouldn't be hit hard. And you've got to send a message. And the message is, if you think you're going to come to North Dakota and be a bad guy or bad girl, we're going to take care of you, and you're not going to like the way we take care of you. You will go to prison. You will go to prison for a long time. You are welcome here as long as you are a law-abiding, productive citizen of our state. If not, then you know what? We got a place for you, and it ain't the streets.
I'm just going to say this. I could go on for a long time about this, but if every school had an armed officer standing on the other side of that front door, you'd have fewer people trying to go through the front door of a school. There's just no question about that. That's common sense. We have 340 million people in this country. We have tens of millions of mentally ill people in this country. We have tens of millions of guns in this country. What do you think is going to happen? You can talk about laws, and yes, I think there can be a conversation on that, and we all are saying to ourselves, can't we try something? So those conversations are fine to have, but you've got to understand that if you don't have a well-equipped and well-armed and well-trained law enforcement presence in your community is in danger. Yep. Gun-free zones are a recipe for disaster. Sure. So I don't know.
Defund the police garbage.
Stop all of this stuff, because you're seeing you only have to drive 220 miles to the southeast to see what that's done for a community that used to be a vibrant, healthy community.
Captain Brian Nee, when a tragedy like this happens, how do you deal with your officers? You're a captain, you're a leader. Do you sit down? Do you talk to them? I mean, how do you deal with them? Because it's got to be in the back of their mind. Oh my God, is this gonna happen when I'm on a simple traffic stop? I mean, they're human.
In the beginning of these types of incidents, if we're not directly involved, we are a supporting agency, so we don't really have a lot of time to sit there and process and do a lot of things when it comes to taking care of our officers, I'll call it, because we're out there trying to take care of that other agency, whether it's assisting on scene, taking calls for service, whatever it might be. We're picking up that slack for those agencies that are directly involved. So it can be difficult, but we have individuals externally for our agency that have as mental health resources. We have internally, we have peer-to-peer. We have a crisis intervention program. We have troopers that are specially trained to talk to people. We have just troopers that are comfortable talking to each other. We have supervisors. We're just checking on each other through this process. One of the things that happens is that, like the Fargo Police Department, we're assisting them, the Cass County Sheriff's Office, West Fargo, Clay County, Moorhead. All these agencies are still doing their own work on top of assisting that agency, and we're more than happy to do it. We want to help them. So once some of that stuff is done is when we can kind of take a look and see where we're at as an agency and work on some of those things with our officers once we're able to get just a little breath there once some of this stuff has taken place.
Back to the phones, 701-293-9000. Lines are full right now. Bruce is in Fargo. Bruce, you're up on a Jay Thomas Show.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on something that Drew Wrigley said about Officer Robinson. How Officer Robinson was kind of talking to himself as he's approaching this guy, telling himself, I just need to squeeze off a few good ones. Mm-hmm. And when he's telling himself that tells me that he's keeping himself calm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's trying to remain calm, not get excited. And I find that really incredible. That just proves that the training that he does have to keep himself calm and focus like that. So.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and that is, when Drew was, telling us, because he had sat down and talked to Officer Robinson before this press conference. I'm quite sure he talked to him multiple other times. But yeah, I caught that too. For Officer Robinson, is I just got to squeeze off a couple good ones, and to keep your calm. That tells you the training that law enforcement goes through, and I got to believe all our agencies up here go through extensive nonstop training. But to be that cool, calm, and collect, and to be able to hold your own, and Drew said it. I mean, look, man, he took that gun out, that dude's hand, shot it out of there. That gun still had 20 rounds in it, and he still comes up there, and he gets up there, and the guy now has his 9mm pistol in his hand, and for him to sit there and say, what do you say? 16 times he gave him the directive to drop the weapon. And the whole time, probably in the back of his head thinking at any time, this guy can fire this thing off. Mm-hmm. And to keep cool like that. And then finally just, after 16 times, I've got to stop the threat and to stop it. That is just stunningly amazing that he is able to do that. Bruce, appreciate the phone call. I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not, Captain.
And it just comes back to training, like we were talking off air, kind of a little bit on air. Is just that when we're training, it's really hard to train this type of stress environment, right? So none of us that wear a badge know exactly how we're going to react in these situations, but our departments put us through situations where we're training this type of stuff. And in this case, you see it through the press conference today. AG Wrigley talking about is that we are taught to and we train on. We will fire deadly rounds downrange until the threat has been neutralized. And when AG Wrigley was talking about this, that's what happened. He didn't keep firing after that happened, but then he reassessed. That's what we're supposed to do. He reassessed the situation, and there was a continual engagement there, which eventually resulted in the death of this suspect, which was completely justified and warranted, like AG Wrigley said. And this I don't want to use bad terms here, but when you think about it, this individual needed to be taken out, and a heroic officer did that. And me just sitting here as another law enforcement officer, you can't be more proud of the individuals that I work with and the people that I work with in other agencies. It's just unbelievable. The people that step up, especially nowadays, and we have a lot of support here, but people that step up nowadays, wear this badge and continue to wear this badge, and especially in situations like this, and keep their level head and want to come back to work and do the things each and every day. It's just impressive. And I work with a ton of folks like that in my agency, but we see that in all the organizations around us as well. And the Fargo Police Department is just as fine as anybody else.
Steve. I think the mental game of law enforcement, you and I, Jay, have been around guys like Brian and others enough to learn this over the years, but I never would have known it coming into this business. But the restraint they show and how mentally tough and how they self-talk and try to make sure that they limit that their mind goes too fast and you respond. I remember the Dakota Access Pipeline protest.
I was out
you
there.
had guys running up to the line of officers, standing there protecting that property on horses, and they'd come screeching right up to the line. You and I both saw it. Is spitting at these guys, trying to draw a reaction, and the amount of restraint and the mental toughness that it takes to be a law enforcement officer. Sure, can you find a cop somewhere, someplace that goes off the rocker?
Every group has its bad apples.
But what people don't understand is what Brian's talking about all the little things that they do to mentally focus, be sharp, and make good situations or less crappy situations out of really bad ones. I think we don't have any idea what it's really like and how sharp that focus is for so many of those guys and gals.
And what you just said, actually, I'm going to play it before we get out of here. I had got it ready when I was doing show prep today. Paul Harvey did a great bit many years ago called The Police Officer. He's basically saying what you just said. So I don't think I need to play Paul Harvey. No, I'm going to play it. I'll play it before we get out of here. Hey, Corey, out in Sabika, thanks for hanging on, Jay Thomas Show.
Hey, Jay, thanks for having such good coverage of this horrific event. I've been listening to both 9070 and AM 1100, excellent radio stations. But I just wanted to say a couple things, and I really wasn't going to comment on this, but all week I heard start with Mayor of Fargo. You know, he classified this as a horrific kill weapon. And, you know, I hate it when politicians get involved and start labeling things because you know, it's not the weapon, it's the individual that does these things. The individual is just a tool, and any tool can be used for good or evil. Obviously, the law enforcement's tool was immensely good at what he did in order to stop the threat. One thing that I do say is, you know, the amount of, let's say, tactical gear, ammunition, I don't want to alarm people, but don't be too surprised because that's kind of a common thing for, I would say, 40, 50% of people into guns probably have that amount of gear, even more.
They do, they do, but you don't. But you're not rolling around in your car with three long guns or three long rifles, 4 handguns, and 1,800 rounds of .223 and a tactical vest.
It'll be
a grenade.
It'll be at home.
Yeah, not to mention though.
Locked in the safe.
Yep.
It's at home, locked in the safe, and if he wants to go out and shoot, he takes one gun out, takes a few rounds, goes and shoots it. So, I mean, that's neither here nor there. But you know, I seen a picture of a hand grenade. How's a guy getting a hand grenade?
Well, these were homemade. These were homemade hand grenades that he had. Also, he also had canisters of gasoline in the vehicle.
Yeah, what does that tell you?
Explosives in the vehicle. I mean, this guy was out for complete carnage.
I think regardless, I mean, I don't know what the level to classify it as terrorism is, if he has to be a member of an organized group. But as an individual, this was definitely a terrorist. I mean, all he needed is maybe the group to back him. But whether it's a lone wolf terrorist, it's a terrorist.
Yeah.
But he was out for no good. And my other thought was, individuals, those, I'm not saying everybody go out, get a gun and be armed, but those that are so inclined, it's important for those that have the mental fortitude, the training out there, to be there if you can and feel so inclined, carry if you can and are willing to, because if that guy had taken all 4 officers out and there was no one there, you would have had defenseless firemen there. You would have had defenseless civilians, and sometimes it takes that civilian that's had his training and been ready. You may have to back up a cop.
Step in,
if it so happens. I mean, if the situation arose, that would have been, rather than shooting with a cell phone, you got to help the law enforcement out if needed. I mean, let them do their job, but if they all go down, I mean, the citizen's got to do his job too. So people should be ready. Take some classes if you need to. There's good classes out there that are offered by law enforcement, and just do that too. But appreciate it, Jay. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate the phone call. 701-293-9000. That question was asked to Drew too. He was asked, "Is this an act of terrorism?" And Drew's response was, "I don't have an answer to that." Basically, he'll let the FBI answer that question.
He's looking for an official definition. We all know it was. Whether you call it that legally or not, it is an ambush. It was terrorism. It was all those things.
John, you're up. Jay Thomas Show.
Yeah, Jay, I seen the Wrigley today, and I wasn't surprised about it. I had my guesses, to where this was going.
Sure.
And like I said, I told you before about this, either a lone wolf or a terrorist cell group, because now that they said, like you had just mentioned, a homemade hand grenade and all this other stuff. Well, okay, now you're dealing with a guy, small arms training and explosive training. You just can't get that off the internet. I've been in the military. I know how to modify a semi-automatic to a fully automatic weapon. That's part of my training. So this guy, and I'm praying to God that this guy is not with the terrorist cell group, because if he is, you guys, law enforcement here, you're going to have a bigger problem than you can ever imagine.
John, appreciate the phone call. That question that was kind of asked of Drew, and Drew reiterated again that, when Fargo police came out and said, look, the community is not at risk. He said, look, they knew, we knew that, okay, this guy isn't working with other people. This was a guy on his own.
Yeah,
otherwise, we would have never
we
came
heard
out.
Some other reports of other things happening. What got me spooked was when all of a sudden we heard the apartment a couple miles away had then I started thinking, oh my gosh, we might have a cell here going on. But everything that we're seeing certainly points to being kind of an isolated incident. Not that it's a good thing, but at least there weren't four of these guys running around.
The fear that, I shouldn't say fear, that's the wrong word to use, but the thing that comes to your mind is, okay, do you have some moron copycat out there that you say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna show them how it's done, because that you have that happen sometimes after mass shootings. Bill in Fargo, hang on. Captain Brian Ewan, North Dakota Highway Patrol. Is there anything you want to add that we haven't hit
for this incident? Or from the North Dakota Highway Patrol, the state of North Dakota, we're here for the Fargo Police Department, and we're here to assist them in any way that they need. Obviously, they have some tough days ahead of them with Officer Walleen's funeral this coming weekend, and I'd also say to his family as well, if they're listening, is that he was an officer for only a short time, but that day one, he's an officer of the law here in North Dakota, and he's one of us. He was a brother in blue, brother in brown, and your loss is our loss, and we're here for you as well, because this is, if you think about it, these all, like Chief Zabalski, AG Wrigley said today, all four of these officers are heroes.
Yeah.
Can I say this too? I'm sorry, Brian, didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you done? Anything else you
were?
Oh.
Thank you.
I think about that young man, Jake Willeen, his family, his mom and dad, and the pride that his dad had pinning that badge on him when he was sworn in. 23 years old. I got a son who's 24. And the thought of that young man's life being over, we talk about the officers, absolutely, but pray for the parents of Jake too, all the officers. But I mean, what do you think those parents are going through? That's got to ruin you emotionally. And how can you not be angry and furious? And I don't know how you get past that as a parent, how you deal with those emotions. I guess God gives you what you need at the time, but man, keep that family in your prayers. That is stunningly difficult. Don't know how you move past that.
Officer Walleen, just so you folks know, of course, it was announced yesterday that his service will be in Pequot Lakes, and then there will be a service here in Fargo as well. But there's going to be a law enforcement escort. And I believe that's Saturday. Yeah, it would be Saturday morning. It's going to start at 5:45 a.m. Fargo Police Department, they're going to escort Officer Walleen from Fargo to Pequot Lakes High School. They plan on arriving there about 9. Due to public safety concerns with the travel route through numerous smaller communities in Minnesota, the law enforcement escort will be limited to only Fargo PD vehicles and commercial buses transporting Fargo police personnel. Fargo PD will utilize the following route in its escort of Officer Walleen to Pequot Lakes. They're going to depart the Fargo Police Substation. That's the one on 13th Avenue and 25th Street South. They're going to go northbound on 25th Street. They'll do a full memorial loop. That'll be made around the Fargo Police Department headquarters on 25th Street North. The procession will then travel southbound on 25th Street South. Next, it'll go eastbound on I-94 from 25th Street south to I-94. That's exit 6 in Minnesota. The procession will travel northbound on Highway 336 to Highway 10. And then it will travel eastbound on Highway 10 to Motley. The procession will then travel eastbound on Highway 210 to Baxter, Minnesota, then will be northbound on 371 to Pequot Lakes. And the reason I'm bringing that up is, look, they want you to show your support. Other law enforcement agencies, first responders, and the public, you are encouraged to be present along the route to show your support for Officer Woleen and his family. But the Fargo PD requests that no other law enforcement, first responder, or members of the public join that escort from Fargo to Pequot Lakes due to safety concerns because it's such a long escort line of vehicles. But if you want to line up, again, it will leave. It'll start at 5:45 in the morning on Saturday. All right, so there you go.
Jay, one quick note as you're kind of resetting there. I thought it was, I was glad to hear the update given, although it was very brief, about Officers Hawes and Dotis. And the term that was used today was critical but stable condition. And to me, that did my heart some good, because we've heard that one of the officers, well, both of them obviously serious injuries, but one was shot pretty bad. And so that's good. Like, critical is not good, but stable, that's good, and hopefully time is their friend. So I was very thankful to hear that brief update today.
And it's amazing to hear. I don't even want to know if I want to use the word amazing, because these are officers and they've taken this oath because they want to be out there. They want to serve the public. They want to protect the public. But I can't remember if it was Officer Dotis or if it was Officer Haas that the chief was saying when you talked to him. He's like, I want to get back out there and work. I want to get back out on the street. I mean, that is unbelievable.
I'm looking forward to it. Body cam footage. Fargo PD recently installed body cams, and so this is going to really, I think, be good. And I know a lot of people were nervous about this at the beginning, like, oh, you just are suspicious about law enforcement. I think it's great. The more transparency, the better, because we know these guys are acting responsibly. But we remember that Nashville shooting when body cam footage came out, and we understood the law enforcement's activity in such a better way by seeing that and what they deal with and how efficient and how precise they are in what they do. So I don't want to say I'm looking forward to seeing this, because that obviously implies entertainment, but I'm looking forward to seeing what we can out of this.
It's going to paint a picture. I think, but Brian, you guys have body cams, Captain Ewan. It's going to, I think, a tragic incident like this, and Drew said we will see the body cam footage. I think this is going to shine a bigger light on exactly what law enforcement, what law enforcement has to deal with. You're going to be there.
Right, and I think you see it nationwide. There's so many departments that have body cams now. I've been on the patrol for 23 years. We've always had in-car videos. So, for law enforcement, we don't see these things as a hindrance. These are a positive addition to what we do each and every day, because it's showing just a different perspective in those situations that we're involved in, that we're away from a vehicle, or even have that in-car video sometimes. It's not something that we're worried about, because we know we're doing the right things. And most times it's showing that, right? It's 99.9% of the time it's showing that, and it's something that we appreciate having, because it does prove to everybody, and everybody's looking for the video, right? You can't go to court now if you don't have video and testify. It's like people don't want to believe the officer unless there's some video evidence of that. Not everything can be captured on video, but we try and do as much of it as we can.
Bill, Fargo, Jay Thomas Show.
JT, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for listening, Bill.
My concern, I guess, is with seeing what the details come out on the shooter with FBI and the BCI this Friday, because of the information being released that he came from Syria and he's a refugee, which in 2017, the United States took on another 10,000 refugees underneath the Obama presidential. And with saying that he may not be with a cell, but he may be a sleeper.
Well, I'm quite sure the FBI, if there's anything out there, they've got that information. We know that he came here in 2012. He did have a green card. He did not slip in illegally. He was here legally. That we do know. We do know. We'll know more. We'll know more on Friday. Bill, appreciate the phone call. James, Fargo, Jay Thomas Show.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, doing good.
Yeah, so I guess I think, in my opinion, I know there's a lot of them out there right now on the situation, but I would probably say I think body cam footage. I think citizens need to see that, honestly, especially if we're talking about there could be ties to some terrorist group out there. But you know, I think the second thing that's kind of alarming would kind of be like that gentleman stated before, is how many of these people are we bringing here out of goodwill in nature that we think, but let's just be honest and factual now after Friday. Some of that is going to turn around and really get you in the butt. So, well,
I've said that before. I think something. I think something big is gonna happen in this country that is going to be shocking, and we have to be careful. You know, again, we don't know the full background of this guy yet. We don't know. We don't know if this guy, you know, wanted to die suicide by cop. If he wanted to go downtown, I kind of got my feelings, but. You know, let's see what the FBI has to tell us and BCI and Drew Wrigley on Friday, and then we're gonna know a lot more then, James, than we do now. But I'm with you. And that's for a whole other day. I mean, we could spend hours on that. But yeah, we have got to be careful with who we're allowing into this country. It's a privilege to live here. Emails, ton of them. Jay, those fine Fargo police officers should never have to buy themselves a meal or a drink again in this town. I'm going to find a pretty hard press for them being able to pick up any of their bills in this town. And I'm telling you, man, something needs to be named after Zach. These other officers. I mean, when Drew explained what Officer Zach did, you know, it's just I still can't believe, you know, what he stopped. Because this story would have been a lot worse. So, like Drew said, Zach, you were the last guy. I mean, you stopped it.
Yeah, and I hope we remember Officer Jake too. Anytime we talk about the officers and that are involved,
Dotus,
yeah,
Haas, the fire department.
Anyone, exactly.
We can't forget the firefighters. No. I mean, they're under fire. You know, and they saved these two officers. Mm-hmm. They saved them. All right, before I get back to the calls, Ronnie, roll it. It's like 2 minutes, but I feel it's appropriate to play this. This is Paul Harvey. He did this, of course, many years ago. It's called Police Officer.
Policeman. A policeman is a composite of what all men are, I guess, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity. What that really means is that they are exceptional. They are unusual. They are not commonplace. Buried under the froth is the fact. And the fact is that less than 0.5% of policemen misfit that uniform. And that is a better average than you'd find among clergymen. What is a policeman? He of all men is at once the most needed and the most wanted, a strangely nameless creature who is sir to his face and pig or worse behind his back. He must be such a diplomat that he can settle differences between individuals so that each will think he won, but if a policeman is neat, he's conceited. If he's careless, he's a bum. If he's pleasant, he's a flirt. If he's not, he's a grouch. He must make instant decisions which would require months for a lawyer, but if he hurries, he's careless. If he's deliberate, he's lazy. He must be first to an accident, infallible with a diagnosis. He must be able to start breathing, stop bleeding, tie splints, and above all, be sure the victim goes home without a limp. The police officer must know every gun, draw on the run, and hit where it doesn't hurt. He must be able to whip two men twice his size and half his age without damaging his uniform and without being brutal. If you hit him, he's a coward. If he hits you, he's a bully. The policeman from a single human hair must be able to describe the crime, the weapon, the criminal, and tell you where the criminal is hiding. But if he catches the criminal, he's lucky. If he doesn't, he's a dunce. He runs files and writes reports until his eyes ache to build a case against some felon who will get dealed out by a shameless Seamus. The policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentleman. And, of course, he'll have to be a genius because he'll have to feed a family on a policeman's salary.
There you go. That sums it up, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, we are all dedicated to serving our communities, right? That's why we do the job we do. We're not doing it for the money, like Paul Harvey just said here, right? We're committed to serving the communities that we serve. We live in the communities that we serve. So just if you know a deputy, a trooper, a police officer, just take the time to talk to them because people are having a hard time with this right now. We have two officers that for the Fargo Police Department that are still in the hospital, still recovering. still in critical condition. We have a family of an officer that was killed, but we have officers that are grieving that in our area, and we have their family members too. No. You know, sometimes we think about officers, but we figured about our families, and I think even sometimes us as law enforcement officers, we forget about our families sometimes too, and what they have to go with through each and every day when we put on the uniform, walk out that door. So again, if you know some of those people, just be there for them.
It's got to be tough for the family. It's got to be really tough when you walk out that door. Some emails. Jay, as a former police officer, I couldn't be more proud of Attorney General Wrigley and how he stood up and stood beside this police officer and this department. You will never see this out of Attorney General Ellison over here in Minnesota. Guaranteed if cops knew they had someone standing behind them like Drew, you wouldn't see the nearly 25 to 30% shortage of cops across Minnesota, North Dakota, and the entire USA. Another email, Jay, just wanted to say thank you to all of you for the updates and reassuring us that the law enforcement agencies are always vigilant and have our backs. They are all heroes. Drew is right. We must back the blue. God bless our first responders, emergency staff, and police force. I love Fargo. Thank you again, Jay. We appreciate the sentiments there. Really do. Another email, Jay, Fargo is not a little town anymore. It's a big city, and there are shootings and knifings and other crimes daily. You have no way of knowing when a nut like this will start shooting, but they need to crack down on the gangs and the drugs and get a handle on all the violence. I can't disagree with you on that. And you're right. You just don't know. There are some people that look at this guy. This guy, as far as we know, I mean, he had some interaction with law enforcement. But I mean, basically, you know, he was under the radar. You know, he was, you know, you couldn't find any social media presence of him. There's still no picture out there, and that was addressed by Drew Wrigley. You know, everybody was asking, you know, where's the picture? Where's the picture? And Drew said, hey, we're not hiding photos of this guy. There just are not photos out there. The DOT has a pic, but they can't release it because of North Dakota Century Code. They can't release that picture. So, I mean, there's just some people that fly under the radar. That happens.
This is, I'm so curious, aren't we all, of who this guy is. Did he come here in 2012 with these, horrible purposes and just waited 11 years to take action? Did he come here as just a regular old guy and got, radicalized while he was here? Is this anything with religious crime? Is this just some guy who just snapped? Just the fact that his name is Muhammad doesn't mean that, he's just a human being. He can have the same demons. Could he get hooked on drugs or alcohol or whatever? And I think sometimes we want to ascribe our own theories to these people, and because of their name or their background or whatever, and those things may all be appropriate in time. I just want to know more about this guy because it just is amazing to me to think. I say this a lot with kind of madmen criminals. At some point, a mom and a dad brought this little baby home to the house, and it was little Muhammad, and he was going to grow up to be this great man. What happened between day one and today with this guy? Only 37 years of age to do what he did.
Jay, your listener called in and stressed how this is an isolated incident. I'm not sure about that. How do we know? Bearcat obviously has left no pictures, no social media information. Who's to say he erased all his communication with any associates? Well, you can erase it, but the technology out there, FBI, they know how to retrieve that stuff. Jay, I do not feel safe anymore. And I understand it, but you also cannot live in fear. Brian, we didn't get to the rules. What are you doing tomorrow? You want to come out to cruise night?
If you have time next week, I'd be happy to come on next week.
I apologize.
It's fine. This takes precedence over anything else that's going on right now in our community, especially with the information shared today at the press conference.
Yeah, we'll get into it next week. We'll get you on. All right, Steve, thanks for jumping in. Got to go. Back tomorrow live from Cruise Night, Cheyenne Street. Your news is next.
This is WDAY Radio, AM 970 and FM 93.1 WDAY and K226CL, Fargo, Moorhead, West.